Greetings from Paraguay. Me and my colleagues from the National University of Paraguay would like to share with you the presentation between policy and practice, bilingualism, English language education, and teacher preparation in Paraguay. This project has been funded by our funding agency named CONACYT, Consejo Nacional de Ciencia y Tecnología in Paraguay. The project is conducted within the framework of not so recent law that was passed in 2013, which mandates the teaching of English from preschool to the final year of secondary education in public institutions. And it represents a significant milestone in national language policy, considering that Paraguay is officially bilingual since 1992 with the latest constitution that was enacted and approved in that year. So since its enactment, this law that mandates the teaching of English, the Ministry of Education and Science has adopted a series of measures that include training teachers to teach English in schools and colleges throughout the country. So the purpose of the study is to explore the scope and effectiveness of public measures taken to implement this law within a particular focus on teacher education. So in order to do that, we conducted interviews and also analyzed documentation from the Ministry of Education and its different departments and institutions in charge of teacher education. So the interviews include key informants such as people in leadership roles in the Ministry of Education, as well as in teacher education. Teacher education is conducted in institutions called Institutos de Formación Docente, which are higher education institutions in charge specifically of public school teacher education. And as well as the instructors who work in these institutions, the teachers in training, and which are the students of these institutions, as well as English teachers in public schools. So the presentation is based on preliminary qualitative analysis from interviews with key informants. Following Saldaña in 2021, analytical categories were identified through coding and interpretation. So the main findings from these interview analysis include the limited incorporation of English as the third language in our educational system. According to one of our informants, or maybe several, only 10 of the 40 official institutes have proper English teachers working and teaching English classes in these institutions. Also, the use of digital platforms without effective monitoring is another main finding. Brief initial training and low language proficiency upon entry, as well as lack of clear institutional materials and strategies. So here I have a quote from one of our participants who mentioned that initial training is short and does not give sufficient priority to English. So we have to start that we were able to gather from our participants that there's not 100% coverage of the teaching of English in teacher educators institutions, so Institutos de Formación Docente. So these institutions are preparing teachers for elementary, early childhood and elementary educations mainly. They do not, only a couple of them prepare specialized English teachers. They incorporated the teaching of English in their program studies 5 years ago, maybe, yeah, now it's been 6 years. And so they have a class in English. It's called Taller de Inglés, so English workshop, that has different that does not have sufficient time allotted to this class to be able to get it future teachers to a level in which they could facilitate English lessons in elementary school. So access to English language training is uneven across the country. So this fact is due to the situation that there are many more English teachers in urban areas in the capital city and the Asunción metro area, which is the highest populated area in our country, whereas in smaller cities, there are much fewer English teachers, and even less so in rural areas. So there is an urgent need for territorial expansion and professionalization. So these institutes, these teacher education institutes in the interior of the country, in the rural areas, in the small cities and villages and towns, do not have the qualified professionals to train new teachers. Even though most of these institutions are in not really rural areas, but they're in the urban and semi-urban areas of the country. But the smaller towns do not have enough teachers to provide for these teacher education institutions. And this is the quote that I shared in the previous slide as well already. So not all these institutes have specialized English teachers providing English lessons in teacher education programs. Now, also to cover for that, or to say make up for this lack of teachers, the MEC implemented digital platforms to compensate for the absence of teachers. And these different, in the beginning, they used the platform Voice of America, which is a resource provided by this public funded institution from the United States State Department, and other platforms provided by them. And the teachers also use other freely available platforms online. There's not a unified platform for teaching English in these institutions. And most of the learning happens as a self-learning without guidance or formative assessment. That's what predominates. So this is one of the big issues, that in many of these institutions, English is implemented through self-learning on digital platforms. Now, this has been changing in the past couple of years, and we've noticed that throughout the course of our project, more of these institutes are getting English teachers, but the time that they have for the classes and the teachers, one of our participants that I personally interviewed, she mentioned that even though the teacher is good, the time that the teacher has with the institution, it's a part-time dedication. It's not enough to provide for all groups of students who need the English classes. And there are also structural challenges mentioned, especially considering that effectively they only have 5 semesters to consolidate their teaching skills. They have an entrance first semester, and then they have 5 more. So the totality of the program is 6 semesters long. And the teachers in training need to be learning language as well as language teaching and pedagogy. And this is true for English, Spanish, Guarani. This is the same. And so the institutions, and here's another quote from one of our participants, we have to do double the work, strengthen language skills, and teach how to teach. So this is a big challenge for the teacher education institutions. And so there is this tension in this gap between what policy dictates and what happens in practice. So the political discourse does not translate into clear curricular action. So it's been a while since this law was enacted, and but the Ministry of Education hasn't really been able to make this a priority in terms of, you know, getting the proper funding to properly train and educate in sufficient English teachers to teach especially in public schools. So there's and also the lack of systematic evidence on our curricular development is an issue. So as you can, if you go online and search and investigate, there's very few empirical studies done on teacher education in Paraguay, and specifically on language teacher education, and even more specifically, English teacher education. And so this is the gap that this study is attempting to fill, especially considering this quote from one of our participants. The documents say one thing, but we don't have clear records on how it is applied. So we are in the process of documenting how these applications is happening, and so that we can provide some recommendations and suggestions on to how to continue with this policy, especially considering that it is enacted as a law and it needs to be complied with. So some conclusions and recommendations include that there is an urgent need to align educational policy with teaching practices. And some recommendations that came about from the analysis, from talking to our participants, include one, the need to extend the duration of initial training or initial teacher education. Also, the need to educate specialized language teachers in all languages, in both of our national languages, as well as our foreign and heritage languages, so that this is a true need. Also, there is a need for specialized materials, especially in Guarani, but also contextualized materials in English, because even though there are an array of different teacher education materials in English, many times the material may not be accessible to teachers in training or teachers, pre-service teachers who do not have an advanced level of English. So we need simplified materials so that our teacher education students can learn English while also learning to teach English at the same time. And also we need to focus continuous education on the diversity and on the need for all our students to become educated and have similar opportunities, because the spirit of this law was mainly to provide similar opportunities to public school students, considering that many private schools these days offer English from elementary school. So that was the initial, the spirit of the law, and it's a lofty goal, but considering the specific context of our national bilingualism, it provides extra challenges as to how to implement our bilingual literacy programs and on top of that, teach English to our students. And this needs to start in teacher education. And this is why the focus of the study is on teacher education. And we need to strengthen our teacher education programs to educate our teachers, not only to be good teachers, but to be able to provide quality education in both our official languages and as well as in our foreign language instruction. So with this, I would like to thank all of you, and we'll be open to the question and answer part of this presentation. Thank you very much. And it was an honor and a pleasure to be sharing this with you here at AAAL. Thank you very much once again. And there's my contact information.